Yeah, it's hard to believe. It's not even been a day, but Eric did put out the latest page for Stripes and Links. Now, the previous one I reviewed a day ago or so actually came out a couple of days prior, so I was kind of late to the party. But this one, as predicted, did go back to the Sabrina side of things. But just like the ZigZag one previously, where she returned to the hotel and everything. Basically, that was used as filler. She let, Tina Links, her bisexual girlfriend, on and off girlfriend, know that her mom was doing good, even kind of breaking down just a tiny bit, very softly, tearing up, and then kind of composing herself and saying she's good. That page, as I mentioned, really didn't have much going on except for that. This one, kind of similar, but a little bit more humorous, because this basically takes place after Sabrina and Tabitha basically head for the hills. Because the last time we left Sabrina and her family, Sabrina basically was successful in finally getting Endora, her mom, to open up about the whole situation, and her mom basically explaining that a part of her actually enjoyed, kind of liked the kiss she got from ZigZag, and that the reason for it, the potential reason for it, is because of the fact that she felt, kind of neglect. Like, she basically felt like, she wasn't getting the attention, that frisky, let's, do the thing kind of attention that she was normally used to getting at times. And what this does is it causes Warren to kind of feel bad because, he's her husband. He's Sabrina's father. So he starts apologizing to her. He basically tells her in his own way that she's always been beautiful and attractive and, hot and everything to him. And, what happens is one thing starts to lead to another, as he's apologizing and, kind of showing her affection, coming on to her. So one thing leads to another, and basically they start getting very frisky with each other, that being Warren and Endora. And what happens is Sabrina sees this, sees and notices this. Tabitha, her sister, her young sister, sees and notices this. And Sabrina, the moment the parents start getting frisky, she's like, yeah, I'm just going to leave now. I'll call you guys later. I'll check back in later. And then Tabitha basically follows after her sister, like, basically telling her, take me with you, And Sabrina's like, yeah, pack what you need. Let's go. Be quick about it. And that basically is the last time time we spent with Sabrina's family. So after that, of course, we got the ZigZag interacting with her mom and all that. And then last week's closure to that chapter of the story, or that arc of the story. Well, that chapter, arc, whatever you want to call it. And so we enter the 66th page here, which focuses back on Sabrina and Tabitha. And now you would think, and I thought this too, I thought they would go straight to Sabrina's home, her apartment where her husband Richard and their daughter Danielle is. But instead, what happens is they decide to lay low, if you will, until things kind of cool off over at their parents'. They decide to lay low at Double Z Studios, ZigZag's, adult film studio. And the way they're laying low is Sabrina, of course, ZigZag left her in charge, decides to not only give her sister the use of her glasses and all that, but, Sabrina has decided to approve certain projects very limitedly. In other words, basically, what I mean by very limitedly is Sabrina's like, yeah, I'm approving some to go forward without a hitch. But the way this is done is Sabrina's like, yeah, I'm letting certain projects be approved without a hitch, but you got to take it up with my receptionist or talent agent or whatever you want to call them. And we find out that the receptionist, the one that basically gives Sabrina the okay, I should say, the okay to approve of these, the person that's, basically getting the getting the stars like Stacy and Tracy Skunk and Sheila Vixen and all them to, give her a great presentation so that she can approve or disapprove of the idea, if you will, or kind of give her sister the okay or not okay to approve or disapprove. The person put in that position, kind of an assistant, if you will, like I said, to Sabrina, while Sabrina's temporarily in charge, is Tabitha, her sister. Yeah, her younger sister basically is the one that, is the assistant, the talent agent, if you will, for Sabrina. And we see this because basically when you look at this page, what it is that, well, back at Double Z Studios, Sheila is sitting down, I think outside of ZigZag's office, where Sabrina's occupying right now because she's been left in charge. And basically we see Stacy and Tracy pass by, and they're talking about, I can't believe they actually approved our idea and all that. They finally did it. They finally said, okay, we can do the project. And Sheila, she hears this. She's like, wait a minute. Sabrina approved your project? I thought she wasn't doing that. And Stacy and Tracy say, well, yeah, she kind of changed her mind, but she's only doing it for certain projects or something like that. So Sheila's like, oh, okay, I can finally get my project up and running. Let's see what happens. So she goes to, Sabrina just to double check, because maybe she's thinking, all right, Sabrina's being generous, but, my idea, she may not approve, but we'll see. So she goes over to Sabrina, and Sabrina does confirm, yes, I am approving a limited amount of projects, to happen, but you have to go and talk, you have to impress my talent agent first, or my assistant. And like I said earlier, the assistant turns out to be her sister, her younger sister, Tabitha. And the reason, again, that they're there, the reason Tabitha's there is because of the fact that, things are getting a little hot and frisky, and very uncensored, if you will, over at, Sabrina's parents' house. And as I've said before, when we got to that ending, about a month or two ago, you can only imagine how 13-year-old, 12-year-old, like let's say Tabitha, and even her older sister would feel seeing their parents start getting ready to, get it on, basically take it to that level of, yeah, Tabitha, you might become a big sister now, kind of deal. But yeah, this is kind of a humorous kind of start to it, because I don't know if we're going to be going to, I'm trying to find the right word to say here. I don't know if we're going to be going to Sabrina's house afterwards, her apartment afterwards, and we see Richard and Sabrina and Tabitha by extension explain what's going on, or we're going to go back to ZigZag. Now, I could see him splitting it in two. Well, basically, like, you have one side of the comic being ZigZag and the other being Sabrina. And I was thinking about, like, okay, what could be the next page? What could be the next page? I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. I do apologize. But, my thought is, what potentially could be the next page? What could that be like? And my thought honestly was, and maybe this might be what Eric is already planning, but my thought was, what if ZigZag calls in, calls, checks in and everything at the studio, and Tabitha is the one that answers the phone? Can you imagine the awkwardness there? And then Sabrina has to explain to ZigZag on the phone why Tabitha is at the studio? Can you imagine the awkwardness there? I mean, that to me is comedy gold if they do that. But I could also see a little bit of a sly smile maybe coming, forming across ZigZag's face, like, oh, so my kiss actually awoken the sexual beast in your mom and by extension your dad. And I could see Sabrina answering her like, yeah, kind of did. So I could see that potentially being, what the next step is and everything in the story, at least what the next page will look like when it gets released, I think later this week or next week. But yeah, but yes, the 66 page, not too bad. It is filler, kind of the start to another Sabrina portion of the arc. But like I said, not so bad. And it's very funny. It's very funny because, again, this is all a result of, Sabrina and Tabitha wanting to lay low until things cool off at their parents. Because the parents are basically, quote unquote, burning the house down with the friskiness as we speak, But to see Tabitha in the receptionist role, the assistant role, basically being like, okay, wow me, show me what you got, tell me what your story is, what can we do, what kind of project do you want to do, kind of stuff. Just having her in that role, I think is awesome. I think it's really awesome and everything really funny because it does, in a continuity sense, connect with the fact that she looks up to not just her sister, but to ZigZag as well. As to, being potential, role models for her, idols, inspirations, so it does kind of tie in with that. I mean, everybody has basically pointed out that the way it was always presented with Tabitha looking up to not just her sister, but mostly ZigZag, is Tabitha's going to, when she gets old enough, Tabitha would be ZigZag's next big star. Like, in other words, ZigZag would be able to step away, more so from being on camera and more so behind the scenes, and Tabitha would be able to, take her spot, basically be the one that, becomes the next ZigZag, in her eyes. And that's how a lot of people would look at it. A lot of people have actually done fan art on that as well, if not have done speculations. But yeah, continuity-wise, even though the scene is done humorously, it does kind of connect in that manner. So again, I thought the page was good. It's a nice return to the Sabrina side of things, and see where we go from there. Whether we stick fully with Sabrina and her family, and she and Tabitha go back to her apartment where her husband Richard RC's at, and and their daughter Danielle is at, and then they kind of explain why, and then Sabrina explains why Tabitha's there with them, and da-da-da. Or we do get, like I said, kind of that split screen kind of thing where ZigZag's calling up, checking in on things. Tabitha's the one that answers the phone, shocks ZigZag by her answering, and then Sabrina, when she gets talking to her, explains the situation. I could see ZigZag having a bit of a sly smile, basically being like, oh, so it awoke a beast in her, a sexual beast in her and all that. So I could see that being, one scenario to do, but we'll see what he's got. We'll see what Eric's got planned. But overall, it's a nice, nice return to the Sabrina side of things, and very humorous. I like the fact that, she, in story, you have Stacy and Tracy and Sheila and some of the other actors and actresses, probably potentially having their ideas given, the green light, mostly thanks to Sabrina's sister Tabitha, and Sabrina, allowing it to happen. And I think the reason she's allowing it to happen mainly, again, is to not only keep them on the down low for the time being for what's happening over at her parents' house, but also to kill time. So basically, the more projects she, and by extension Tabitha, approve, the more projects they approve. I'm trying to find the right word to say. The more projects they approve, the more time will be wasted and spent. So that way, if Sabrina feels like enough time has passed, she'd be able to, instead of taking Tabitha to her apartment, take Tabitha home. But we'll see what they do. But again, I've enjoyed it so far. I like this continuation part here. Nice, humorous beginning. And just see what happens going forward. But honestly, I do recommend you guys check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. You can find a majority of it on the SabrinaOnline.com website. But I do recommend checking it out. And I also still believe, in my opinion, that that Eric's probably going to give us a Fur After Dark spin-off or tie-in comic to this whole story, whether it's ZigZag and Tabitha, getting it on with each other, whether at the hotels they stay at, or it's, Warren and Endora or ZigZag and Endora, I could see one of those three being a tie-in comic, either as taking place during or as an epilogue. But I can see it happening. I can. And really, that's all I can say. I mean, I do still stick by the way I think it's going to end. Not only are they all going to reconcile and forgive each other and apologize for their actions and stuff, but I can see Endora giving ZigZag a taste of her own medicine by kissing her as a way to not only forgive her, but to kind of teach her a lesson like, yeah, you didn't expect that, didn't see that coming, didn't feel good or something like that. But ZigZag being ZigZag saying that could be like, yeah, I didn't see it coming, but it did feel good. So I could see that too, basically being how they ended, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. But anyway, though, guys, that's about it. That's all I could say on it. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section, as well as during the live chat, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, hit the, like I said, share the video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, and all that. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. I do apologize if I was a little, a little ramblish, a little off at times here, trying to do this when I got opportunity, because it is summer break. For those of you that follow me 17 years, you know what that means. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and give my take on the 66th page of Stripes and Links, the very centric ZigZag Sabrina online story. But that's about it, guys. So until next time, I'm out.